Today on the show, you and I discuss conspiracy theories, what was really going on during the hunt for the Titanic, and Shelley Wade joins us to talk about syrup again.
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So, apropos of nothing, I wanted to start the show today by sharing with you the wildest story I came across while I was reading the paper. Sidebar, do you actually read the paper? Because when I say read the paper, I mean flip through my phone and see what the hell is going on in the world digitally. I haven't read the paper like ever in my life. I guess I used to read the funny papers when I was a kid, and I read online versions of newspapers my whole life, but I'm one of those people that has grown up unable to sort of relate to people that must hold in their hand a newspaper. Whenever I've held newspapers in my hand, I get newsprint all over them. I'm just not a fan. I don't like the way the pages stick together. I don't like the way they take up space. And my dad used to read the paper when I was a kid, and I like that. I mean, I've got no problem with people reading the paper, but here's the thing. As the sections kind of got disseminated around the house, as me and my sister took the funny papers, and as my mom took the culture section, and my dad read the news, like all these sort of like bits of paper would start lying around the house. And if you're like me, sort of an obsessive compulsive neat freak, just the aftermath of someone reading the paper was a little too much to take. So it's messy. There's newsprint. There's all these sort of annoying things that you got to deal with. And reading the paper was never for me. But I say when I read the paper, and I don't know why. I think it's just something that we've all grown up saying because our parents grew up reading the paper. And when I say reading the paper, I mean reading online versions of the newspaper on my phone. I got to tell you, it was a couple Christmases ago, I did let go of the concept of reading hard copy books. For a while, I was that guy who went, I must hold this book in my hand. I've got to turn the pages. I've got to feel it. I've got to smell the smell of a book as I'm kind of taking in whatever piece of literature I'm taking in. That's the way it's meant to be enjoyed, don't you know? Like, I used to be that guy, and I know plenty of people that are still like that. But I remember one Christmas when I was flying to see family. I was just bored out of my mind. And, well, I'd gotten into reading on a Kindle occasionally. Like, I'd done that a couple times, and that sort of seemed okay, but it still felt like a book holding it in your hand. But I had all my books on Amazon, and I was like, I'm so bored, and I don't really get service where we're going, and let me just download a whole bunch of books onto my phone with my Amazon account. So I did, and ever since then, I've just been a convert. I've been able to enjoy the digital form of all forms of literature. I love it. It's greatest. I love the fact that I can have a complete library on my phone. The idea that I used to lug books around with me, multiple books, like whenever I was going away on a trip, whenever I was flying, whenever I was going to be on a bus for a long amount of time, or take the subway, as you do in New York City. You get around primarily with buses and subways. I would always go, what books am I taking with me? I'll take this one and this one in my backpack, so I'll have a choice. So I used to lug multiple books around New York City and on planes and on vacations. And I was only able to let go of that antiquated thing maybe a couple years ago when, out of sheer boredom, I started being able to read books on my phone. And you know what? If you're one of those people that needs to hold and turn the pages and do all the things that one does with a book in the more traditional sense, I get that. I understand that. I was that guy for a long time. But it is freeing. It is freeing to be able to walk around with an entire library in your back pocket. The relationship with literature and media has obviously changed because you don't have that physical relationship anymore. You don't go to the bookstore. You don't go, oh, here's a book that I've been waiting to buy. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm going to grab it. Here it is on the shelf. I'm going to hold it in my hand and turn the pages and all these things. Or when you get a book as a gift from someone gives you a book and they write something on the inner cover, and that's all nice. And that's gone away. And you know what? It does sort of bum me out during the holiday season because, quite frankly, if someone wants to get me a book for the holidays, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. If that's your Christmas present, I just really want the Kindle version. You can't unwrap that. It's not cool and it's kind of boring. And yeah, I was thinking about this when I was a kid, and we'll get on to the craziest news story of the day in just a little bit, but I was thinking about this because I'm seeing, some folks over the holidays and they're younger. And I was like, man, gift giving has really changed from being a child. Like, if you want to buy a kid a gift, in the past, my go-to was CDs. When I was a child, that's all I wanted. I wanted CDs and I wanted books. And that's great because, well, you can hand a kid a CD, it's wrapped, it's compact disc shape, or maybe you've got one of those crafty relatives that likes to put it in a box that makes it look like it's not a compact gift, compact disc rather. Your gift is really, I got you a boring sweater, it feels like a sweater, it looks like a sweater. Oh, look, it's the CD you requested. Yeah, that's the right Rage Against the Machine album, right? That was my childhood. But now, I don't know what to get a kid that is a fan of music. What are you going to do? They've all decided to consume their music through streaming services. I'm going to get you a year-long membership to some sort of online gaming community or something. That's no fun. You can't unwrap that. And that's what they want. It's weird. Kind of destroys the magic of Christmas. The way we've started consuming media in the digital age. I'm a big fan of having things to unwrap and giving things to unwrap. But nevertheless, we move on. When I was reading my version of the paper, being a child of the digital era, like that song. What's that song? Bad Religion, 21st Century Digital Boy. When I heard that, I was like, oh, that's me. But as I was reading the paper, which I still insist on saying this morning, I came across this absolutely insane story behind the military's secret mission to locate the Titanic. Were you aware of this? Now, this was classified stuff. But speaking about now declassified events, Robert Ballard, who discovered the Titanic, said that the expedition to discover the Titanic wasn't really the expedition to discover the Titanic. It was part of a secret U.S. military mission. Yeah, did you catch this? You and I will discuss exactly what this secret military mission that accidentally wound up discovering the Titanic was all about in just a little bit. Thank you so much for hanging. Thank you so much for being a part of my radio family.
Real radio. 104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So like I said, it was a wild story. And you know what? There's no moral to this story. There's no cute homily to follow it. There's no, hey, we learned something from this. So there's none of that. It was just freaking nuts. When I read it this morning, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to share this. I don't know if you caught it or not, but the search for the Titanic, as it turns out, not so much the search for the Titanic. Speaking about now declassified events, this guy, Robert Ballard, who discovered the Titanic, well, he said that the expedition to discover the Titanic wasn't necessarily that. It was part of a secret U.S. military mission. To do what? They weren't looking to recover the Titanic. They were looking to recover 2 sunken nuclear submarines on the bottom of the ocean. Yeah. He said, quote, they did not want the world to know that. So I had to have a cover story. Yeah. The true story of what happened is now a museum exhibit at the National Geographic Museum in Washington. And Ballard was a commander in the U.S. Navy. And he was a scientist at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. And this is how they did it. This is all cloak and dagger, very X-Files-y stuff. This is the sort of thing that makes Alex Jones fans don their tinfoil hats and Keep an eye out for shape-shifting lizard people living in the hollowed-out moon. The Navy offered him funding and opportunity to, quote-unquote, search for the Titanic, but only if he first explored the USS Thresher and the USS Scorpion. Yeah, these were two American nuclear subs that sank in the 1960s. Insane, right? Like I said, it's a calm Mulder and Scully moment. But he said, they wanted me to go down and go back and not have the Russians follow me because we were interested in the nuclear weapons that were on the Scorpion and also what the nuclear reactors were doing to the environment, which is an uncomfortable thing to hear. But when his team finished exploring the Scorpion and the Thresher, they just had 12 days left in their trip to search for the Titanic. Yeah, the vast majority of this trip was to find and explore these two nuclear submarines that went down in the 60s. Then they had to quickly go find the Titanic, so it looked like the whole thing wasn't a giant ruse. Insane, right? The ship that sank on its maiden voyage was found on the ocean floor at a depth of more than 12,000 feet in the North Atlantic Ocean. He said, when we found the Titanic, we were naturally very, very excited because it was a tough job. We got it scoring the winning goal at the buzzer. The famous discovery set off major press attention. And, well, we know how the Titanic has since been romanticized courtesy of Kate and Leo. But the expedition's true purpose was kept under wraps. Yeah, a New York Times story from the days after the discovery features a series of denials from officials about the project. Yeah, they were straight up denying that it was anything to do with anything other than the Titanic. Navy spokesman Captain Brent Baker said at the time that the project was simply to test if the oceanographic system worked. And scientists denied any kind of military involvement. And, oh, man. This is insane. If this doesn't whet your appetite for more, I don't know what will. Ballard, the guy that discovered the Titanic, who did so under the ruse of... who did so even though it was a ruse to cover up the fact that he was exploring and searching sunken nuclear submarines that went down in the 60s. Ballard, the guy that discovered the Titanic, wow, this guy's a man of action. This is the type of person that you write spy books about. But... he said that he's been involved in other secret Navy missions which have yet to be declassified. I know. Like I said, if it doesn't leave you hungry for more, I don't know what will.
The longer you're in a relationship, it's just hard to sustain that energy, right? Look at Titanic. Everyone said that was the most romantic movie. Yeah, because it was about two teenagers that knew each other for 2 days. They should have done it about a couple that had been together for a few years. Let's see how romantic they would have stayed during that whole crisis. Get in the goddamn boat, Rose! I don't want to get in the boat. Get in the boat. I'm freezing my ass off out here. I wanted to go to Jamaica, but no. I don't want to go to Jamaica. I want to take a cruise in the middle of the winter. You never draw me naked anymore.
So are you any kind of conspiracy theorist? I got to be honest with you. I'm not. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a skeptic of pretty much everything. I would love to believe that such a thing as the supernatural existed. I'd love to believe there were ghosts. I'd love to believe there was more than just nothing after we pass away. I'd love to believe that there was more life out there than we knew about. Now, here's the thing. I actually do believe that there's got to be something else out there. I find it very difficult to fathom the idea that in all of creation, we are the only things that are living or that have ever lived. But I don't think we've made contact with them. I don't think they've made contact with us. All of the above is something that I look at skeptically. I'm a skeptic when it comes to conspiracy theories that would love to be proven wrong. But when you hear something like this, when you hear that the hunt for Titanic was not really the hunt for Titanic. The hunt for Titanic was a hunt for two sunken nuclear submarines that went down in the 60s. It does make you think, what else do I not know? What else am I not being told? And there's obviously an awful lot that we're not being told and we don't know. But I've decided I'm biting down. A buddy of mine who is very much a conspiracy theorist, and I don't know if you would call him a theorist because he genuinely believes. And you know what? I've come to the conclusion that if someone believes this stuff, who am I to argue with them? Well, on most of this stuff. There's some things where I just believe that seeing is believing, and until I see it, I won't believe otherwise. Like, I do not believe the earth is flat. And people that say the earth is flat, okay, you're allowed to think that, but I don't think you're ever going to convince me of this. However, a buddy of mine has convinced me to watch a documentary, and I've decided when I fly to visit family during the holidays, I will delve into this movie. Have you ever heard of it? You ever watched it? This movie called Above Majestic. The premise of Above Majestic is this. On September 10th, 2001, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld announced that $2.3 trillion could not be accounted for within Department of Defense expenditures. Now, it was September 10th, 2001. We all know what happened the next day. The very next day, the Pentagon's Budget Analyst's Office was destroyed in the attacks of 9/11. So there is a bit of a remaining mystery, at least according to the premise of this documentary. Where are the missing trillions of dollars that Donald Rumsfeld announced were missing? This movie, Above Majestic, it takes a look at what it would take to hide a multi-trillion-dollar secret space program. A clandestine group of elite military and corporate figureheads charged with reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology, also known as Majestic 12. There is this idea that after Area 51, we took a stunning technological leap forward. We were in carts and buggies for the longest time. We were rudimentary with regard to our understanding of technology. And then all of a sudden, we're winning the space race and heading to the moon. And if you've watched X-Files, you know that there's plenty of people out there that believe that we traded all sorts of different things with aliens in exchange for alien tech that could help us win the space race and give us an advantage over other countries. Anyways, I'm stoked to dig into this movie Above Majestic. If you watch it, let me know what you think. At ADSXE is where you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. If you are sitting there going, this is absolute hogwash, well, I'll get back to you on that one. But like I said, when you find out the hunt for the Titanic was not actually the hunt for the Titanic, it does make you go, a little bit.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land.
All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
I am lucky enough to be joined again by the one and only Shelley Wade. How are you?
A to the D. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm better now you're here. And but the reason I wanted you to come back was, do you remember last week we talked about that guy who seduced a woman by pouring maple syrup all over himself?
Yeah.
For those that weren't listening.
That's one way to get him.
Yeah. Who would have guessed a guy who would randomly get naked and cover himself in condiments might be creepy? There's this dude, he's a 52-year-old guy named Robert Somley. He's a landscaper in Monroe, Connecticut. He has a 48-year-old female coworker. They were recently working on a home together when he said he needed a break. About 20 minutes later, she went inside and found him naked in somebody else's house, mind you, watching porn, covering himself in maple syrup.
Wow.
And you know what? You pointed out last time that this is in New England where the maple syrup is good, you know? So, like, this could have been a rather expensive proposition.
Yeah. Well, this is last time you didn't tell me their ages. I didn't know he was 52 and she was 48. This kind of puts another spin on it because I was imagining this kid being silly, putting maple syrup on himself and trying to impress this young girl. This puts a whole spin on it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I guess at age 52 and 48, you know what you like.
You're settled in with your fetishes. Yeah, I think so.
What would we call it? A syrupy?
Oh God. Yeah, he would be the syrupy, or as we would say in Houston, we say scissorp. So he would be the scissorpy.
Scissorpy.
Exactly.
Scissorpy sounds like a really, really laid back type of exercise. You gotta do some burpees now.
Scissorpy.
I guess for those that are not familiar with the Houston hip hop culture,
yeah, that's a Houston hip hop term. Scissor, sipping on.
Have you ever tried that?
No, actually, and I wouldn't lie to you. No, I have never tried scissor, but, listen, I grew up now we're getting real hip hop. I grew up in the same part of town as, DJ Screw and, all of the guys that always talk about the scissor. Now it's like a whole, I don't know, worldwide phenomenon. Everybody's sipping on scissor, but that pretty much started in Houston.
Yeah,
not that I'm saying that's like the best claim to fame, but I'm just saying.
No. No, like, and for those that don't know, it's sort of taking codeine cough syrup and mixing it with Sprite or some other kind of soda. Sprite is like the preferential soda to mix it with, right?
I don't know. I've never had it. And I know that's probably people from my neighborhood would probably be shocked that I've never had it, but I haven't. I just, listen, I don't like to drink cough syrup when I'm sick, so certainly don't want to drink it otherwise.
When I found this out, when I moved to Houston and I saw like guys doing this, they're like, I was like, you gotta be kidding me, because...
Well, you know where it started from, AD. At the time, people don't have a lot of money all the time to buy this kind of thing, that they wanted a quick high.
Yeah.
Let's go find this cough syrup.
Yeah.
Syrup. Scissorp. And that's how it got started, and so it just became this thing.
But it's like you can't get it without a prescription here, and then sort of like
not scissor, but the cough syrup.
The cough syrup the cough syrup that they mix with Sprite. You need a prescription, and if you don't have a prescription, I guess the addiction to the codeine in it is pretty pronounced, and people are willing to part with like a lot of money for it. I heard up to somewhere between $500 and $1,000 a bottle.
You know way more about this than you should.
What's going on? I did some remixes for Paul Wall.
First of all, you were a Houston resident for a long time. You should know we don't say Paul Wall, we say Paul Wow.
Paul Wow.
Yes,
the people's champ, who's a great guy. But I learned about I learned about consuming cough syrup recreationally.
Familiar with it. Okay.
Yeah, but what's weird is growing up in England, all that stuff legal. Codeine is over the counter. You don't need a prescription for it. So it blew my mind that something that you could just go buy for like £2.50 from a Boots chemist in London was something that people were willing to pay hundreds of dollars for, and it was kind of like a heavy street drug. And it's a horribly addictive thing, and it's really, I mean, some people say it's killed folks, some people say that it can really damage your health in a very sort of crazy and long-term way. Well, this got
I know. We went off way on a sidebar. This is a long sidebar. But back to the scissor.
Yes, back to this guy.
The Vermont syrup.
Yeah, the syrupy, the 52-year-old guy named Robert Somley, who's a landscaper in Connecticut. He told his 48-year-old female coworker that they were working on someone else's house. He said he needed a break. About 20 minutes later, she went inside, found him naked in that other person's house, mind you, watching porn, covering himself in maple syrup. And shockingly, she was all about it.
She was like, ooh,
she was all about it.
Me on. Let's make this happen. If I walked in on someone just covering themselves in syrup, I'd be like, this person is really weird. Not that I'm trying to be judgmental, but I wouldn't want to join in on them. Everybody's got their something. That's fine. Do you? But I don't want to join you.
It's really taking a leap.
Unless it's Idris Elba. If it's Idris Elba, I will join him.
Right.
I will make an exception for him.
Interesting to know which side your pancake is buttered on.
Exactly.
But I mean, like, what are the odds? She was all into it. Like, can you imagine?
I know.
Like, oh, how did you know? I'm a syrupy
Maybe
too.
they just had this thing. He had this sense that she'd be all about it.
Yeah. According to the police report, they did stuff involving the syrup, and also to mix things up, brought some blueberry jelly into the mix. Yes.
You know, I don't have. Do you have fetishes?
No.
Am I asking too?
No.
Personal?
I would tell you, and I don't.
I'd say, I don't have a specific, well, actually a couple of them, but they're not so like weird that someone will walk in on me and think I'm weird. Like
we're an inclusive society. Weird to you.
I am very turned on with men in pinstripe suits, and not the Yankees kind.
Right.
Not the baseball kind, but just like pinstripe, and not like the big, like off the rack, big pinstripe. I like the nicely tailored, and so funny because I'm not typically into the businessman types. I normally like, very artsy and, just different guys. But for some reason, I am very turned on when I see a man in a nice pinstripe suit. I have to start fanning myself. So that's one.
Really? And it must be pinstripes, like just, no pattern on it.
Yeah, men look nice in suits, but the pinstripes, I can't tell you where that came from. I have no earthly idea, but it's something. I should really, should I mention this to my therapist and ask her if she could take me through trying to figure out where the pinstripes
This sounds significant to me.
I don't know where that comes from, but it's such a turn on for me. I mean, I literally get really heated when I see a guy in a pinstripe. I really do. But again, it has to be a nice tailored pinstripe, not just like this big pinstripes off the rack. It's got to be tailored.
Actually, it's funny because I don't have a thing for pinstripes, but there is one. I think maybe it's because we like things that are different to us, or maybe what we're not used to. But
it's like the yin and the yang kind of thing.
Well, I was like a punk rock kid, and was in a punk rock band, and we had a record deal, and we went around the world. And it's pretty easy to meet girls when you're the lead singer of a band and you're a teenager. People like, how do you approach girls? And my answer was like, I don't. I just kind of stand there and wait for them to come up to me after the show, which stunted me when I was no longer in a band, and it was like I could never be like, hi, my name's Adrian. Would you like to get a cup of coffee? I was just used to standing there, and it was like a muscle that wasn't exercised, so I forgot how to use it. Like I had no game.
You ended up okay though. You ended up okay.
Yeah, but here's the thing, because of that, I had my pick of other sort of punk rock individuals, all these chicks in Doc Marten boots and, with crazy hair and multiple piercings, as many of those as, I wanted, I could have had for a while anyway. And it's funny you should say the pinstripes, because I started getting into girls that were the exact opposite. I didn't need the rocker tattoo-y looking chicks that wanted to be down and were part of some sort of alternative lifestyle and looked like they would be in a mosh pit on a Friday night. That I'd seen plenty of that. And Office Casual started doing it for me. I'm not even
look at her.
Well, no, because
slacks.
It went from she looks like she travels with the band, which I wasn't interested in that, to she looks like she has a job. She looks like she has a career. She looks like she's got her life together a little bit. So
what about completely opposite, like a librarian or something?
Well, I mean, I think there's people with librarian fetishes. Every movie has a cliche the naughty librarian took off her glasses and all of a sudden she's gorgeous. It's a weird thing. But I kind of relate to the being into the slightly more formal thing, because it was just I've had a gut full of broken chicks that, want to get on a tour bus and, do all this stuff that is associated with the rock and roll scene. And to be honest with you, the less somebody knows about my job and rock bands and profession and all that sort of stuff, the more into them the more normal and sort of kind of just like I said,
that's really
business casual kind of does it for me, because it says you got a job.
Yeah.
And I like that. But I'm curious, a couple different things. I'm curious to know a little bit more about your selection of fetishes. And it's worth pointing out that this guy who covered himself in the syrup, not only did he get arrested, he was arrested again this week.
No.
Yeah, we'll get into the full story next.
To get washed away.
AD on the radio.
So maybe you like guys in pinstripe suits because, you know, that's not what you've had in the past. A pinstripe suit represents stability and, you know, like I said, having a job.
You know, I don't think about jobs when I think about them. I just think about how sexy they look in the suit. I mean, it's like for me, like, I don't know. I've always been a career woman. So I'm not looking at a guy like, oh, you have to support me. You have to pay my bills. And I'm not looking at like, oh, he's got a stable job. Although that would be a nice aspect.
Well, I mean, also, you don't want some sort of like, I mean, who was it? Tommy Chong from Cheech and Chong. When him and Cheech and Chong weren't getting along, they asked Tommy Chong, like, how do you feel about, you know, Cheech? Do you like him? Do you wish him well? He's like, no. Like, how do you feel about him? He's like, kind of wish his daughter marries a jazz musician, man. And you know, well, it's just like, you know, I think it's nice to get a sense of someone's stability when you look at them. And I think pinstripe suit says you're there. You got it together. I have to
talk to my therapist about this because I've never thought to bring this up to her. I mean, just... Again, I'm trying to think back to the origins of when I, like the earliest point I can remember, I was attracted to guys in pinstripe suits. And I can't remember, but I do know that I get very heated when I see a man in a nice tailored pinstripe suit. I mean, even just thinking about it right now, I'm just really, you know, just really hot about it. I mean, I can't even tell you what that's about. And another thing, I love talking about food. That gets me, I don't want to say that gets me sexually excited, but I certainly get really excited talking about food. It's like I need you to describe it to me. I need to understand everything you're eating. If I'm not watching you, I want you to make me see it, you know, with your words. You know?
Interesting.
It's something that really excites me, but just in a I love food kind of way, and I love talking about food kind of way, not in a sexual way. The pinstripe suit is sexual, though.
Right.
But I would say that talking about food is a form of fetish for me.
Basically, gentlemen interested in the female attention of one Shelley Wade should probably start talking about food while wearing a pinstripe suit.
That would be so amazing. I've never thought about that, AD.
Well, so Merry Christmas.
Yes, oh my God, yes, that's awesome.
There you go.
I'm imagining it right now.
Do you like cooking shows?
I do. And you know, it's so hilarious. I have a friend, Jackie, who she knows I've watched cooking shows, AD, since I was a kid. And this is before the big, you know, I guess maybe telling my age, but this is before Food Network became a thing for everyone. I used to watch PBS all the time for the cooking shows, and I have always been obsessed with them. Funny thing about it is I don't cook that much. I can cook. When I do cook, my family and friends love it, but I just am not like that person, like, ooh, I got to get my hands in some pots and pans. I'm not that person. But it's just something about watching those shows. My friend Jackie, back to her, she's always like, what are you doing right now? I'm like, oh, I'm watching Food Network. And she's like, are you trying any of the recipes? And I'm like, no. She cannot get over the fact that I will watch these shows for hours and not try any of the recipes, because her reasoning for watching is to try some new recipes. And for me, I just love to see them starting with nothing and then creating these masterpieces, these dishes.
Yeah.
And so I just get really great satisfaction out of that. So yes, I do love watching cooking shows. I don't cook as much as one would think, but I do love watching them. I want to marry a chef, actually. A chef that wears
a pinstripe suit when he's not in the kitchen. Do you like the Great British Bake Off? You watch that show?
I do. I love it. And, you know, I've been watching the American version as well. And I'm kind of like, I love the British accents. And so I've been trying not to be discriminatory against the one without the British accents.
Here's the thing. Like, I really like it because, I mean, I grew up in England, so it sort of like helps with my homesickness occasionally. But also, like, I love how polite the contestants are to each other. They're all like, help. Yo, do you need a cup of sugar? Can I go over here? I'll pop it over here and put it in the oven for you, shall I? Don't forget to preheat like you did last time. They're so like nice to each other.
And they're on a deadline. They're helping each other finish.
Right. And like, but like an American version of that is like, you and your bitch ass entremet are going down.
They actually do have an American version, by the way.
I can't bring myself to watch
it. It's been airing on
it.
ABC for the last few weeks, and I've been watching it, of course.
Oh, gosh. All right, so let's get back to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
He got arrested. The guy who covered himself in syrup. The woman joined in, was all into it. She was like, how did you know? I'm a syrupy too. But the woman found out later that this guy, Robert, had taken a video of the entire thing with his phone. And even though she was all cool with the syrup and the jelly stuff, she was not okay with him recording it without her permission. So
I think you told me that last time, yeah.
So she went to the cops. They got a search warrant for Robert's phone and found the video. So he was arrested for voyeurism.
But that was the first time.
That was the first time. And we bring it up now because, well, he got arrested again. Yeah.
What the heck?
One of the best stupid criminals of the year, 52-year-old landscaper Robert Somley in Monroe, Connecticut. We learned about Robert earlier this month. He seduced that female friend during the job by getting naked and covering himself with maple syrup.
Mm-hmm.
He was arrested for the voyeurism, and now he got busted again because he was arrested last week for allegedly trying to intimidate the woman that shopped him to the cops.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
he's just not the smartest, is he?
Or the nicest. I don't know. He was hit with a charge of witness tampering. And he was also charged with violating a protective order that banned him from contacting her.
Interesting.
And on a related note, Shelley Wade, you know what today is?
What?
National Maple Syrup Day.
It is not.
Yes,
You're kidding.
I kid you not.
Oh, wow. I have some maple syrup in my cabinet. Maybe I should use some today. Not for that. Not how he used it. But
Have you ever had any, like, guy, because it's one thing to go, hey, could you put on a pinstripe suit for me? Like, 9 guys out of 10 will be like, that's going to work?
And
yes, I will.
I have, I have shared with guys that I'm interested in before how much I have a fetish for pinstripe suits.
Yeah.
And me sharing that, I don't really try to force them to put one on. I just kind of put it in their heads for, like, if they want to impress me later, kind of thing. But what were you going to say, though?
Has any, that's an easy ask.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, you got to get a pinstripe suit, but on the other hand,
you have to get one tailored, specially tailored for you. It's not that easy.
But it's not like you're crossing a behavioral line by wearing a suit. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had, like, a guy that wanted to do stuff that you were like, well, I don't know about this?
Yeah, this guy...
In sickness and in health, this is pretty sick, but okay.
This guy, and I was just about to say, I hope my dad's not listening, but my dad passed away, so I don't have to worry about that. But... this guy that I used to, we were never in a relationship per se, but we fooled around. And
was he your booty call, Shelley Wade?
Not exactly, but we did have fun together.
Uh-huh.
And he was an attorney, believe it or not. And he would always talk to me before we, ever got physical. He would always tell me he had a foot fetish, and I think that's probably one of the reasons he liked me, because I would wear sandals and stuff, and I guess he liked my feet.
I've never understood that, but it seems very common, because I know a lot of guys that are into that. Like, I remember once, like, this one buddy of mine, I can't remember who it was. It was some female singer, and she came into one of the other radio stations down the hall to do some performance, and he's like, she's so hot. I was like, really? We looking at the same person? Like, he's like, dude, she's wearing open toe sandals. I was like, so? He was like, oh, I have to. Okay. I was like, but that's alarmingly common. So
yeah, I've had that, because not to toot my own horn, but I do have pretty nice feet, and I keep them. I get my regular mani-pedis, and this guy, this attorney, had a foot fetish, and I knew this because he would always talk about my feet all the time.
We have about a minute left, but quick, what did he do?
We were the first time we fooled around, and it actually ended up being the last time. Actually,
oh really?
But that wasn't the reason. Anyway, when we fooled around, most of what he did was take my feet and rub them up against his genitals, excuse me. And I was just like, whoa, this is interesting. And it was really a huge turn on for him, And I was like, oh, okay. So he was more into that than anything else. That was a major foot fetish.
I bet this time of year he hangs his stocking by the chimney with care.